Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Cheetah. I'm part of Armanino's marketing team. We're going to get started in a couple more seconds. We're going to just let people fly into the webinar here. Just hang in there. We'll be with you guys shortly. All right, so we are 2 minutes into the webinar, and we want to welcome everyone today. This is a Armanino and Ramsay Innovations collaborative webinar where we'll be talking about how business leaders can use finance as a superpower to grow their business. But before we get started, I have a couple of housekeeping items that I wanted to let you all know. You can maximize and minimize the webinar pane during the presentation by using the red, orange arrow buttons shown on your screen. During the webinar, we encourage everyone to ask questions. You'll see a question box on your pane that you can use to type your questions in and click submit. Our presenters will answer those questions as time allows during our Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Also, to ensure good audio quality, please check your settings that the appropriate audio option is selected. If you're using a telephone, please click on the phone call option. If you're using a computer, then please click on the computer audio option. Also, we are recording today, and we will be sending a link to the recording and deck within 24 to 48 hours after the presentation. So what are we going to be talking about? Well, we're going to do some quick intros, and then we're going to go right into the content. We're going to talk about what is finance's main jobs. There are a couple. We will be talking about the key forecasting elements or business leaders should be looking at. How can you make scaling easy? Why is data-driven financial insights important? And sales, marketing, and innovation. And then we're going to have a panel discussion with our guest speakers, and we're going to wrap it up with a Q&A session at the end. So who are our presenters for today? So we have John Morris, who is a founder of Ramsay Innovations on the call. We have John Cogan, who's the director of our consulting practice. He leads a strategic finance and outsourcing group here at Armanino. We have Jay McAllister, who's the CEO of Paragon, and we have Jonathan Hanwith, who's the CEO of Think Parallax. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to John Morris.
Thank you so much. So prior to finding my current company, Ramsay Innovations, I found a digital agency called Rise Interactive. And I won $10,000 in a business plan competition 17 years ago. I bootstrapped it to be one of the largest independent digital agencies, exited that business last year, and then founded this new company, Ramsay Innovations. And the reason why I bring that up is because the playbook that we used to grow Rise, we recognized was universal. And so what we now are providing is executive coaching to teach CEOs of small to medium-sized businesses how to basically use data to grow their businesses at a faster rate. Next slide. So the reality is that scaling your business is hard. Okay, I don't care what type of business you're in, what you're doing, it is not an easy thing to do. Our job is we make it easier. And our mission is to help 1,000 businesses thrive like they've never thrived before. And we're really specifically focused on being the best at offering holistic solutions to B2B companies to help them grow faster. Next slide. What we want you to think about when it comes to your business is that there are really 3 stages. So a lot of companies want to grow quickly, they want to get going immediately, but oftentimes you don't have the infrastructure to support that growth. So the first thing we do is we help you prepare for that growth. And then once we've built that infrastructure, then we can get into what oftentimes is the more fun area, which is propelling that growth and really investing in the sales and marketing. And then what you're going to find is this, as your business grows and scales, there is new types of infrastructure you have to build to sustain that growth and keep it going. So we teach you about all three different phases to help you grow faster. Next slide. With that, I'm going to turn it over to John.
Thanks, John. One of the many Johns on this call. So John Cogan here, Director with Armanino and our Business Outsourcing Services organization. Armanino is a national firm and one of the top 25 national audit, tax, and consulting firms, and one of the fastest growing. We are primarily in Western states, but we do have coverage across the U.S. And our goal is to be the most innovative and entrepreneurial firm, making a positive impact on the lives of our clients, people, and communities. Now, for my part, I'm a many-time CFO and CEO. I've been part of 6 growth companies, as well as a number of very large global organizations. And I'm going to start us off today talking about finance and what finance is about and how it can impact growth companies. And before I get into the 2 primary jobs of finance, I'll note that every company does their accounting. I just don't see that not happening. But finance is a bit of a secret weapon because not a lot of folks understand the differences between finance and accounting and the fact that they're 2 very distinct disciplines. Accounting is a bit about what you've already done and a little bit more of what's behind you. Finance is about what's ahead. And it really has 2 primary jobs. Number 1, helping companies understand their core economics and constantly improving on those core economics. So it really is the job of finance to help you understand how we're making money or maybe how we're not making money, and to dive into the economics of each and every part of the business, from revenue elements to cost of delivery or cost of goods sold, down to every component of expense. And it's about really understanding that, because when you can understand what makes each of those things tick, you can attack them and get better. And without that understanding, it's really hard to get better. Our guts only take us so far. It's great to have actual analysis and reporting, so we'll look at that in a moment. So job number 2 is helping businesses chart a path to their best future. What is that future? Do you want to run a highly profitable business or business that kicks off a lot of cash for many, many years? Are you trying to grow and get from 5 million to 50 million or beyond? Or are you trying to get to that exit point? Do you want to sell your company in 5 years or go IPO in 8 years, whatever that is? You need a roadmap to get there. And finance is a critical part of building that roadmap. And as we all know, if you write things down and build plans, you have a much greater chance of accomplishing those issues. So those are finance's 2 primary jobs. Let's look at job 1A first. So we split job 1, which is knowing your core economics, into 2 parts. Number 1 is reporting. And here's the thing about, accounting is wonderful, does all sorts of great things, allows you to understand your historic performance, but it only allows you to see that in a pretty constrained way, and it's using the rules of generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP, as we have it stated here. And that tells you a wee bit of the what, but it gives you very little of the why or the how. So it misses a lot of the good stuff that could give you insight into, well, why is my business performing certain ways? Why does it cost me more than I'd like it to cost to acquire my next client? Or why is my service delivery so expensive? It doesn't do you any good there. So reporting, beyond the very basic chart of accounts-based reporting, which is an accounting thing, reporting is really important, because if you can get into the things that really drive your business, like how many leads to create, a converted client, or how many dollars does it cost me to serve an average client engagement, or any of an infinite number of those questions. If you can boil those down to interesting reports and metrics, then you can actually provide yourself some tools that allow you to more quickly and easily understand your business, and not just you, but the other folks who are running the business with you. So recently we were helping a client who had high customer churn. They were growing their client base quickly, but then they were also churning out of their customers quickly. So they were losing ongoing business. And that was obviously not just frustrating for them, but it was killing their profitability. Once we determined that was an issue, we actually managed to create the churn calculation with their agreement on what comprised churn, and we were able to show it to them and their leadership team, and then it flowed down through the organization to the people who could actually impact churn. Was it a training issue, a product issue, any of a number of things, and their churn started to go down, and their revenue from continuing business went up. And it was really about reporting. I know that seems funny, but by providing that kind of insight, we were able to actually drive action across the entire organization, right down to the folks who could do something about it. And that was a revelation for them. So job 1A, reporting, and the question is, what drives our business? And great reporting focuses on the things that drive your business that you can impact. So that's reporting, job 1A. Let's take a look at some samples here. There are just so many different interesting ways to report, because there are almost an infinite number of metrics or KPIs, key performance indicators, available. And some of them might be purely financial, and others might combine operations with finance. Churn, actually, that's interestingly not a financial indicator at all. So your accounting wouldn't give you indication of that. You have to reach into your CRM or otherwise be tracking your customers. And we've got a few examples here of some dashboards that we've put together. Let's go ahead and move to the next one. Sometimes it's financial ratios or indicators. Let's keep on going here. And other times it's things like accounts payable or cash. Where's my cash stand at this point in time? And did we have any other of the dashboard samples here, Sarah? Nope. So we're going to get into job 1B here. So let's just finish up job 1A. Reporting dashboards, they can be, whatever you want them to be. The idea is think about them, really get to a point of understanding. This is where finance professionals, finance help can help you understand what makes your business tick, helps you understand what to focus on, and then that can bring useful, actionable information. So let's talk about job 1B now, which is analysis. So analysis is getting a deep understanding of all of your economics. So for example, let's say that your company does online advertising on Google with Google Ads, Facebook, LinkedIn, who knows, a whole host of online advertising. What we find is that many business owners will do that advertising but not understand where they're getting the biggest bang for their buck. Where's your highest return on investment? So we use the tool of financial analysis to gather data, analyze the data, discuss it with the folks who are actually creating these programs. Usually they're internally driven. Sometimes you work with third parties. But the idea is to use the tools of analysis to better understand your core economics. And what you might determine is that your average cost of conversion for an online sale, let's say, is $10. But depending on the platform you're using to do that advertising, it could be anywhere from $3.20 up to $25 per conversion. And just knowing that is incredibly powerful. So you can, select your channels to understand, okay, well, if I'm spending $20,000 a month, maybe I should spend more of it on the low cost per conversion side of things and then gain more conversions. but also just by dint of doing the analysis, you might say, you know what can we be doing to, drive the cost per conversion lower within each channel, which might be something you're already doing, but now you can really focus in, and maybe you're able to move that $25 cost per conversion down to $17.50, and maybe you still want to use that channel for strategic reasons, but let's look at the dollars and cents of this so we can really understand where we want to spend money. So that was one teeny tiny example. Basically, every part of your business operation, from sales and marketing through to product delivery, has different analyses that you can dive into. Let's go ahead and pop all 4 of those boxes out. So these are just, the highest of the high level. So I like to say finance never sleeps, because there's always the next thing to understand. And I've been in finance at some just gargantuan companies like Cardinal Health and Cisco, and they have hundreds and hundreds of financial analysts, and they never run out of stuff. And yes, those are bigger scale businesses, but they're still doing the fundamentally same things: sales, marketing, operations, and then overall you have financial elements that you can get into. So the fact is, this never stops. You always want to be asking yourself, what are we doing? What are the economics of what we do, and how can we get better at each of those things? And it's incredibly rewarding, because every time you do one of these, it ends up changing the way you do business, and it drops more dollars to the bottom line, more cash out, and it gives you a clearer line of sight to whatever that long-term future is that we talked about up front, which was job 2. So job 2 is forecasting. Um, uh, I've been an entrepreneur many times over. I work with entrepreneurs and business builders all the time at many scales, from pre-revenue up to hundreds of millions of dollars. And those who have a plan and have written down a plan and really understand the cause and effect of a business forecast, they just do better, because businesses are too complex to be run on guts alone. And I will tell you, I've seen some amazing guts out there. There are incredible business instincts from so many entrepreneurs. Just the instinct to get into business and to do something new and different is not just brave, but it's amazing, and it shows great intelligence. But there's just too much data out there. There's too much to keep in your brain, and actually getting something down on paper, creating a forecast, that's incredibly powerful, because it allows you to, and this is a little bit of magic. It's kind of that superpower that's part of the title here of finance, but it's a little magical to me. It allows you to see the future without the pain of having to live it. So you can actually see your business into the future and impact it today, okay, just by looking at where all of those numbers run. And let's talk about some of the key forecast elements here, the things that actually drive your forecast. These are all doable, knowable things. If you have even a modicum of sort of financial analysis and reporting in place, you can do these things. You can create what we call driver-based revenue and cost, which is to say, if we sell X number of widgets at Y cost, will drive Z, sales from period to period. Those are all, knowable things. You can actually build those elements into a forecast, and then you can track them and change them as you go. The same with OPEX, or pardon me, operating expenditures. How many headcount do we have now? How many are we going to be hiring? Are we opening new offices? What are the new causes of expenses, et cetera? Are we buying any new major equipment? All of these things are knowable and imaginable. And like any muscle, if you exercise it, it gets stronger. So the more you forecast, the better you get. So the best way to forecast is to just build something, even if it's relatively high level, and then turn it into a rolling forecast. So every month, the forecast should be revisited. You update the actuals so you can see how you did in the prior month, and you can track your history. And then you update the forecast, because things are always changing. Business is incredibly dynamic. You can't just sit still on a forecast. We got that big sale early. That gives us new ability to do X, Y, Z, or now we've got to hire those 3 people earlier that we thought might come later in the year. Awesome. That impacts your whole year. Update that forecast, create the new plan. Once you've got the base forecast built, updating it is actually really rather straightforward and easy. And it's just so powerful, especially when you have a multi-year forecast, which once again, isn't that tough to do once you've built the base forecast. You can see your way all the way to that great future. Okay. Now we all know that the future doesn't happen exactly the way we predict it. That's why you're constantly updating this thing. But it gives you a roadmap, and it actually makes some things really stark. Like, gosh, we wanted to get to $50 million, but unless we like triple our rate of customer acquisition, we can't get there. And we can't get to tripling that rate unless we, do more marketing and hire more salespeople and et cetera and et cetera. Without that visibility, you're unable to really make effective decisions today, which impact your outcomes next year. So all of that is about the forecast. It really is magical, and what it does to financial outcomes, financial results, is incredible. So that's a bit about finance and item 1, which is know thyself better, and item 2, which is chart that great path to the future. That's what finance is about. Now I'm going to hand it over to John Morris to talk more about the Ramsay Method, which really is right in line with this and creating that great future. John.
Excellent. Thanks, John. And the Ramsay Method is basically taking a lot of the things that John Cogan mentioned in a more holistic view of not just the financial components, but once you have the insights of your finance, how do you do all the implementations to fuel that growth? So it's really going back to what we were talking about before about preparing growth, propelling growth, and sustaining growth. Next slide. So the idea of data-driven financial insights is really what helps build the infrastructure to ensure that you are allocating your dollars to get to the right area. And a few things I'm going to talk about today. The first is the importance of bottoms-up budgeting and how that will help fuel your growth. How you then can use that to really determine how many customers you need to acquire. And then once you understand that, how you build your sales and marketing infrastructure. Next slide. So the first is why do you need to do data-driven financial insights? And the answer is incredibly simple. It is going to help you grow faster. Okay, every single company has a strategic plan, whether they know it or not. It is what they choose to spend their money on. And if you say you want to grow faster, but you don't spend any money in sales and marketing, well, guess what? You don't really want to grow faster because your actions don't match the words of what you're saying. And having data-driven financial insights will allow you to start aligning what you say you want to do with the activity that goes along with it. Next slide. So the starting point of all of this is the concept of bottoms-up budgeting, and I'm going to break it up into a few different components. The first is, as John Cogan was speaking about in terms of forecasting, projecting, is putting your budget together and projecting what your revenue will be. And there's going to be 2 different components of that: your existing revenue and your new business, and that's going to help you determine what you need to do from a sales and marketing standpoint. The cost of goods and services is really important because the more you improve your gross margin, the more you can actually invest into sales and marketing. And then when you take your SG&A, philosophically, we want to get you to investing in that sales and marketing as well. Next slide. So what I want you to see here, it's getting cut off a little bit at the top, but it says existing clients, and then you have 2 sections of prospective clients. What you are doing here is a bottoms-up budgeting exercise to project your revenue. And what you want to do is for every single one of your clients is project how much revenue you're going to generate by month And one of the crucial things is this by month category. I oftentimes hear people speak in years. We want to do, $5 million this year. But by breaking it down by month, you can have very specific understanding of what you need to target. Okay, so you start with your existing clients. Then when you go to your prospective clients, we break it up into two categories. The first is what we call as named new clients. These are clients or prospects that you are currently speaking to, and you have to do a yes or no analysis of, are you going to win them? And at what month are you going to start working with them? When you are done with that, we then move on to something we call blue sky. Blue sky are clients that you hope to win, but you have no idea who they are. So you have to start thinking about, what are you going to do from a sales and marketing standpoint to generate the leads in order to close those deals? So in this scenario, we are looking to acquire a new customer in May, a new customer in June, a new customer in July, etc., which will allow us to start determining how many customers you need to acquire by month. Next slide. So based on that analysis, what this is showing you is between your named new clients and those blue sky, you're looking to acquire 11 customers this year. But more importantly, you know very specifically how many customers you have to acquire by month. So if we're in June right now, well, you should be thinking, not only am I going to win that new customer in June, but what am I doing to set myself up for success for July and August and September? Because I got to go win 3 new clients in that time period. And based on your history, that might be very easy and something you've done before, or you might be looking to push the envelope and achieve new heights because you've only acquired 5 or 6 customers a year. 11 would be challenging for you. And we have to think about how you make that happen. So this is the beginning of setting up your sales and marketing infrastructure. Next slide. So I want to define a new term for all of you real quickly called BANT. BANT is a fancy way of saying that it is a real opportunity. And the reason why it's an acronym, and I'll explain what it means in a second, but I've dealt with hundreds of entrepreneurs, and they all have a different definition of what is an opportunity. And so an opportunity oftentimes might mean a lead. It actually might mean a real opportunity, or it's someone you shouldn't even be chasing at all. And so BANT is an acronym that stands for budget, meaning that the prospect you're talking to actually has the budget to afford your services. The next one is authority, that they actually are the decision maker. The third one is need, that you have assessed their pain and they actually can need and use your services. And the last one is timing, that they're looking to make a decision in a fairly quick manner. And so what you want to start looking at is, what is your win rate from BANT opportunity to actually winning a customer? Is it 85% like you see in the screen, or is it 10%? That's going to have a huge, huge difference in terms of how many BANT opportunities that you need. The other thing that you need to think about is, what is your average number of days to win those deals? In this scenario, it's 44 days. So that means that if we want to go win a client in July and our sales cycle is 44 days, well, we better generate a BANT opportunity literally today, because otherwise we're already moving into August from an average standpoint. And so it allows you to build the foundation of what is realistic and what you can or can't achieve from there. Next slide. Once you're done with this, based on whatever your win rate is, you start thinking about, well, how many BANT opportunities am I generating by month? What was my target? And how are we doing against that? And so from here, you can determine, how effective is your sales and marketing? In this scenario, you can see halfway through, June might be at risk. We need 13 and we only have 2, but we've done really well in all the previous months. So you could say that there might be some concern to what's going on right now, but historically, we've done a pretty good job this time period. So this is a really solid report to help you understand, are you generating enough BANT opportunities to achieve your sales goal in terms of the number of clients? Next slide from there. And then the other thing you want to look at is, based on how many clients you're looking to acquire versus how many clients you've actually signed, you can see if you're on track. This goes back to what John was talking about from an analysis and a forecasting standpoint. If you're well below your target in terms of your customer acquisition goals, you might need to take cost out of the business. If you're ahead of your goal, you might want to invest more to fuel the growth of your business, all depending on your goals, because John also mentioned that you might want to, be more of a cash collection business and you don't want to fuel the growth. So there's a lot of strategic things that you can do here. But ultimately, understanding how many clients you need to win by month, understanding your win rate from BANT opportunities to actually new customers, and understanding your sales cycle is the foundation to your sales and marketing. Next slide. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is just philosophy. If you want to grow faster, using the line I said earlier, every business has a strategic plan, whether they know it or not. Your philosophy has to be, we are going to do every single thing we can to invest as much money into sales and marketing as possible. So when you look at your sales and marketing as a % of revenue, the more you can invest in that sales and marketing, the more you're going to be able to fuel the growth. Doesn't mean you spent it intelligently yet, but first thing is we got to get the money available. Then we got to figure out how to optimize and make it better and better. Next slide. So first of all, I don't like to think of sales and marketing as an expense. I like to think of it as an investment. Okay, if you have positive places to spend your sales and marketing that will generate leads, that will turn into BANT opportunities, that will turn into customers, that is something that you will want to do on a day after day basis. And the other thing I recommend doing is when you finish your bottoms up budget, literally go through every single line item of your budget and ask one simple question. Is this expense more important than putting into sales and marketing? You'd be amazed at how many dollars you can find and re-optimize by going through that exercise. And from there, once you have that, I'll kind of give you the foundation. So we now know how many customers you need by month. We know how many BANT opportunities we need by month. Now you can start thinking about who is the target audience that you're going to go after. Okay, the smaller your budget, the more narrow that target audience is going to be. The larger the budget, the more wide that target audience is going to be. And then you have to start thinking about, okay, how are we going to actually reach that audience and acquire customers? And so there are two different types of levers. There are short-term levers and there are long-term levers. Let's just say we need to win a client in June. Well, I want you to start thinking about what are your marketing levers that you have available right now. Can you get paid media up and running? Can you, get a newsletter out to your email base? Can you make phone calls? Versus some things where if you're thinking about Q1 of next year, you might start thinking, well, there's events that I have to start sponsoring so that I'm in a good position to develop enough BANT opportunities so that I could start the year off and have an amazing January. And just one of the things I want you also to think about is January or 2022 starts a lot earlier than January 1. If you have a 44-day sales cycle, well, that means that you need to start generating BANT opportunities in mid-November in order to hit January. And then you want to start looking at how many marketing qualified leads do you need to generate enough BANT opportunities. So it starts earlier and earlier. And so the more you start planning and forecasting and analyzing things, the more likely you're going to have a greater success in the next year. Next slide. The other thing I want you to think about is not only do I want you to be thinking about investing in sales and marketing, but I want you to be thinking about innovation. And I want you to ask yourself a couple questions. The first is, what makes you unique? Okay. And what I've found is a lot of times people say, like, we have amazing customer service, or we have great response time. We're truly partners with our clients. And I don't have a problem with any of those answers. If you can answer the follow-up question. Here's the follow-up question. That's amazing. I just talked to 50 of your competitors, and they also said they have amazing customer service. So how is your customer service better than those 49 other companies? If you can answer that, you have a real differentiator. We have 24/7 support. We have technology that, allows you to answer your questions without having to talk to a person. I don't know what it is, but the point is, you have to be able to answer that. And what I also want you to understand is, you don't necessarily have to answer it this second. It's a journey. Okay, so if you understand what you want your differentiator to be, the idea is that if every year you invest in that, you will make that more of a reality. What that ultimately does is, one will increase your win rate. So when you're in a meeting with a potential client that's ideally targeted to your target audience, because you've gone on that journey and you've invested in this innovation, you should have a higher chance of winning that business. You also will be able to retain that business, as well as potentially unlock new revenue sources. So it's really investing in sales, marketing, and innovation are absolutely crucial to your future. Next slide. So just a few key takeaways. The first is, data-driven financial insights is going to help you grow faster. And a big key to doing this is this bottoms-up budgeting, where you are trying on a monthly basis to understand how many customers you need to acquire, as well as how many opportunities that you need to generate to acquire those customers. And then what are the tactics that are going to allow you to do that? And then philosophically, you want to put as much into sales, marketing, and innovation as you possibly can, in order to not just grow faster today, but be able to sustain that growth as you go down the road. And then with that, we'll start opening up to the panelists and the questions. John?
All right, that was great, John. Thanks for that. And let's go ahead and move into our panel discussion now. And I would also encourage folks to ask questions through the GoToWebinar control panel questions zone if you have questions you'd like to get in. But why don't we start off by allowing our two additional panelists to introduce themselves, give us a little context for who they are, what their business is, et cetera. Why don't we start with Jay? Jay, please tell us a bit about you and your business.
Thanks for having me on, John, today. My name is Jay McAllister. I am the CEO of Paragon Tech. Basically, what we look at is, imagine a scenario where you implemented a software tool for your business and you found that there was some core functionality you thought it did, and it turns out it doesn't do that. Or imagine there's some type of cyber incident that occurs in your business because the proper precautions were not taken. Those are the kind of things that we help our clients to solve. And we really try to focus on doing just that, and only that, to give that that unique value proposition for our clients.
Awesome. Thanks, Jay. And Jonathan Hanwitt.
Hi, thanks for having me. And John, the first 35 minutes was extremely insightful. I'm the CEO of Think Parallax, and we're an ESG strategy and comms agency. And so what that means is we're typically working with publicly traded companies to help them define the strategy around the work they're doing around the environmental, social, and governance issues. And then we're communicating the work that they're doing to their different audiences, largely investor focused, but some employees and some customers.
Great, thank you. So we've got the leaders of two great businesses, and we'd like to learn a little bit more about how finance in general and the Ramsay methodology have impacted your businesses. So why don't we start with a little before here. Jay, before these sort of new tools came to you, how were you running your business? What were the tools you were using or the methods you were using?
Sure. So a lot of the content that was discussed before were just ringing reminders of how we used to operate. So we've been working with John Morris and his company, Ramsay Innovations, here for almost a year. Now, before that period of time, every decision that we made as an organization was based on, we would have a leadership meeting, and essentially the questions we would ask is, how much money can we spend right now at this point in time in order to make an effective decision that's going to propel our growth? Now, we didn't really, we had a massive amount of reports that we exported from QuickBooks, P&L statements, cash flow projections, but they weren't structured in a way that was really meaningful. So what we found is that we had a lot of data that didn't really didn't give us a ton of insights. We weren't really able to make strategic decisions based on that. So basically everything was at this point in time, how much cash do we have, and what do we think we can, what do we think our revenue is looking like for next month as far as the amount we're able to spend currently. So as you can imagine, not quite an optimized way of operating.
Yeah, and you know what? That sounds incredibly familiar, I've got to say. So you were not alone at all there. Jonathan, what about your business prior to bringing some of these new tools on?
Yeah, well, I guess I can echo Jay's sentiments, because I think you actually, where you were still ahead of where I was. And the irony is that I think our business has been around a lot longer than yours. So I've had a part-time finance person for years, and she actually came from one of the big four accounting firms. So she is very good at accounting, right? And then I separately had an accounting firm reconciling my books. And so what we would do is we would just really look in the past, like what were our trends? Where do we spend our money? How was it spent? And we never looked forward. And then I think it was, I actually have had a partner in the business forever. And in October, I took over, and I think around the same time we hired Armanino and put this financial forecasting model in place. And me and the finance person just like looked at each other after a couple of months, which is like, I cannot believe that after all these years of doing this, we hadn't taken the time to put this in place, which honestly, the costs are nothing in comparison to what the reward would be. So I think it was just always looking back, and I could see what the trends were, because we do a lot of these sustainability reports. It's like corporate reporting, and it's cyclical. So we could see that there was some like cash flow cycles and then other kind of ups and downs, but we could never really project what was in the future. So there was the financial forecasting piece, which was unbelievably eye-opening. But the other big piece was that Armanino helped us rethink how we structure our books based off of our industry. So I think we just had a small business financial, accounting, whereas now it's put into place based off of we're in the marketing and advertising space. So it's been like more than insightful. I can't even like begin to tell you how insightful it's been, which if I had to give a recommendation for another business, once you kind of got your business off the ground, I would put something like this in place as soon as possible, because it's worth its weight in gold, which again, you almost feel like an idiot for not having done this in the past, because you're just looking in the past when you really need to be looking in the future. So it's been great, honestly.
And you hit on a number of things there, Jonathan, that were sort of finance versus accounting-y things. Accounting is very useful for looking in the past, and there's a lot of use for that. And I think that's really, would you say that your understanding of sort of where finance and accounting fit and what they do has developed, since it's kind of come to mind for you here?
Yeah, again, like not that I'm by any means an expert, but the novice feeling I think that I had, where I actually at least have some sort of insight into looking towards the future, it's honestly night and day. And I think that there should be honestly some sort of small business owner, new business entrepreneur, startup, like, look, there's a big differentiation between the two. And this is why this is important, and this is why that is important. And not until I went through the process that I really say, oh, wow, I get why it's important. And for me, it's just, especially for us, and I think for everyone, it's the planning, and it's knowing where we can spend the money. Like, look at the balance sheet, right? Like, look at what I thought we were doing, but not until I had these conversations and with your team was like, oh, you have way more money than you thought you had. You actually can spend X amount of money, like John Morris would probably say, on marketing and maybe headcount, which I couldn't really tell, because I knew what our balance sheet was, but I didn't know what our forecast was. So, a ton of it's instinct. My instinct has gotten me this far, but it's only gotten me this far. It can't get me that far. So you actually need to put the modeling in place to kind of take it to the next step. So yes, I see the differentiation between the two. I wish I would have seen that 10 years ago, honestly.
Gotcha. John, what's our next question here?
Yeah, so what does that mean to both of you in terms of, now that you understand the difference between finance and accounting and you've kind of built some essential, what does it mean in terms of your business?
Jay, want to answer that one?
I'll go ahead and take that one. So, as far as the way I look at it, in my business, I'm the integrator. So I am typically the one who is taking the complex ideas, strategies, and distilling it down into an action plan. Now, also with, as the case with a lot of other small businesses, we've been around for about 7 years. I'm also the visionary as well. So I kind of am teetering between these two roles to make sure that we can propel the business forward, we can innovate, create new ideas to create value for our clients, but also to bring that down into an action plan that works in the real world and is grounded in reality. So for my business, really being able to look at the metrics, to look at our prior performance, to gauge where we're at, and then to be able to put a plan in place to spend those dollars appropriately. I mean, like you mentioned, John, before, it's something that really is a simple statement to make, but it's very profound, which is that every business does have a plan in place. And it's just a matter of, if you don't put pen to paper and put the infrastructure in place, what we winded up doing is we spent a lot of money on areas that we actually didn't intend to spend it on. But since we weren't able to clearly, concisely operate based on a plan and then create the strategy beforehand and then do the tactical block and tackling day to day to actually get us towards that goal, we wind up spending massive amounts of money in areas we didn't want to, only to get to the end of the month and say, we wanted to spend X dollars in sales and marketing, but we only did this because other things came up. And when we look back and reflect, it winded up being that they were not actually as important as we thought they were at the time, but we were just putting out fires and basically operating the business, based on duct tape and super glue method, just constantly looking at what are the most pressing issues we need to tackle, allocating dollars towards that. So really, as far as the finance and accounting portion of it, it's allowed us to not only look to the future, but also to rank our past performance and make sure that we can bridge the gap between those two.
I mean, I couldn't have said it any better. I agree with you completely. I think where I'm at now is, for us, we have all the modeling in place, we have the team in place, we have the infrastructure. In the course of the world and the economy, our business is just positioned really well. So things are going well. We reached our sales goals for the year, I think, last month. So now I'm like, well, what's the actual vision for the future? Am I going to try to exit in 2 years? Do I want to create an ESOP? So I'm having to readjust my own thinking, because I think forever I thought about it one way, and now all this modeling is in place, and I can kind of understand better how to grow the business. Like, what actually do I want in the end? Which is, more of a personal question of what do I want. But it's been, I don't think without the infrastructure in place could I have said, well, this is right. I get the structures there. Now what do actually I want to do? So it's a really interesting place to be in for myself, my own development.
So Jonathan, that's really interesting. It almost, a business does require all these different elements to make it run and run well. How has, the last year impacted your thinking about, your approach to finance and accounting? Like, did you think of them as strategic, a year or two back, in a way that they seem to be, really central to your path to success now? And how has that changed?
Honestly, I don't think I was sophisticated enough in my thinking to really understand the impact that it would have. And I probably wouldn't say this to my whole team, but I think that the operations person and the CFO are probably the two most important people at those companies. I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think. Because if the operations person in my world is the quarterback, is making everything happen, and the CFO works together to say, okay, how do we need to move the finances around to make everything work? That I just see the relevance is just like sky high. I'm really curious to hear from the three of you if you agree with me, or if like the head of strategy is important, or head of creative, or head of marketing. I'm curious what you guys think.
Jay, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, what I think, what I'd like to add to that for a little bit of context is, I think that no matter who is placed in that role and who, what hands the business exchanges from, at the end of the day, we talk about this concept of scalability, and you can't have scalability without systems, policies, and procedures in place. And this gives the framework to be able to really create a turnkey operation so that anyone who's placed in one of those seats has the ability to execute based on the vision of the company that you've already defined beforehand, rather than having multiple departments all rowing in separate directions. If you don't have a common goal, how can you ever get to where you want to be? I think a lot of times businesses don't necessarily have a common goal that's written, that's tangible. It's more of this ethereal, conceptual thought of this is where we want to be. But in order to really get all the leadership on the same page, you have to have this framework in place.
Oh, that's really great insight, Jay. John, what else do we want to hit here?
Yeah, I'd love to understand, okay, you didn't have this foundation. Jonathan, I'm in agreement with you that this is definitely one of, if not the most important roles as it relates to how you run your business. You now have this infrastructure. Give an idea, give examples of how are you running your businesses differently now?
I mean, I can clearly, it's mapped out for the rest of the year of what we're going to spend, and it's updated each month to the penny, honestly, in all the different categories. And so it's so much easier to make strategic decisions than based off of, my gut reaction. I mean, across the board. And the big thing for us is where we're spending our money, like our sales and marketing money, and then like our headcount, and our contractors. So do we hire? Do we not hire? Like we can consistently see how we're spending this much money, 80 grand a month on contractors. We're like, I think we probably should hire for a few roles because we've been spending this much money. And then for our sales and marketing, well, wow, look, we brought in all this new business. So I think it's just really guiding us to make more strategic decisions. And I think that the details and the nuances of XYZ costs are really important, but it's the bigger decisions around where to spend bigger chunks of money in kind of bigger categories, which has just been unbelievably insightful. I think it's just like, I can't tell you because we can see what's happening month. We update, just like the tracker that you have. We have the same thing, tracker for our new projects, tracker for ones we think we're going to win, and then our expenses are updated each month. And our expenses went up, about 250 grand for the year as of last month because we realized we need to spend more money on headcount. Well, now we know on our sales and marketing team we need to sell this much more to cover this cost. So, I mean, it's just making smart strategic decisions. That's just the bottom line.
Jay, you want to speak to that too?
Yeah, as far as one of the major projects we undertook when we were onboarded as a client, and it was quite a laborious process, I must say, is we had to restructure our finances into a way that made things actionable. So one of the major things we did is we took our chart of accounts and we actually categorized it by department. We needed to understand what our costs were, and we also needed to know what our revenue was per department so that we could make decisions based on that data. So once we had that infrastructure in place, now we actually were in a really good position to be able to understand and start gaining insights about where we're spending and where the revenue is being accrued in. Now, one of the first things we did after that is we created a 13-week cash flow analysis that's updated on a weekly basis. And basically that gave us the ability to look at our budget, look at our forecast, which we would reforecast on a quarterly basis, but then our cash flow projection, we would project out for a 13-week period so that we could see, okay, now we actually are able to spend this money confidently because of the trajectory of where we're going. So when we first started, before we brought Ramsay on, we spent about 5%, we spent less than 1% on our total as far as towards marketing and sales for the company as total revenue. And again, we wanted to spend more, but a lot of times, since we didn't have a solid action plan in place, we winded up not achieving our goals. And obviously, if you're not spending on sales and marketing, the obvious repercussion of that is that you won't bring on as many clients as you thought. You won't schedule as many network assessments, which is basically our first step. So what we did is we wanted to work backwards. We figured out, okay, what are our targets for the year based on month using that bottoms-up budgeting method. And once we knew per month how many clients we needed to bring on, which for us, it's about an average of 2, then we looked at, okay, well, how many network assessments do we need to schedule on a month-to-month basis in order to make sure that goal is hit? For us, it's about 4. We have about a 50% close ratio on that BANT opportunity. So with all that information, then we said, okay, well, now how many cold outreach and email, cold calls and emails do we need to make as well as social media campaigns do we need to begin in order to make that network assessment goal happen. So took all of that data, distilled it down, and basically now we're able to make those decisions based on sales marketing. And as a result of that, we're spending now about 3.5% of our total revenue after experiencing about a 50% year-over-year growth during COVID. So we've definitely ramped up our sales and marketing spend by a long shot, and it's not by happenstance that this happens. It's just literally a result of having the data to be able to make the decisions and then confidently spend the money knowing that, hey, this is in the plan. This is what we agreed upon was most important to us as an organization beforehand, and now we're just executing. So we're not figuring things out along the way.
That's amazing and wonderful to hear. Hey, I think we're in a place where we can ask one more question and get some really quick responses. John, do you have one more question you want to throw out here? And we'll just get quick answers from Jay and Jonathan.
You talked, Jay, about, the investments in sales and marketing innovation. Jonathan, you talked about, every dollar is accounted for. How do you believe by having this and having this investments, what do you think this will ultimately do to your growth rate on an ongoing basis?
The natural answer to this would be, I would be foolish to think that by having an understanding of where our finances are now, mapping out our future, and having the data to be able to look at our performance and fine tune and refine it a long time. As time progresses, I'd be foolish to think that we wouldn't have really the only option is for our growth rate to increase. And we're seeing that already, given the fact that we've experienced quite a bit of growth, even with the pandemic and COVID. For our company, things are looking very, very optimistic for us. We've been able to define our core values. We've been able to find our core competency and that unique value that we bring to our clients. You take all that together, sales and marketing, and then the ability to really efficiently and productively communicate that value to prospects. And I think it's a killer combination. So for us, things are looking great for us.
Likewise, I think honestly, it's a combination of what's happening in the world, the economy, and then having the structure in place to see what the forecast is. But like I mentioned, we met our yearly sales goal at the end of May. Never in my life has that happened. I've been, 46 years old, so I can't say that I don't want to project what would happen in the future. But it looks to be extremely promising. And for us, it's a different kind of business model than Jay per se, but having the financial forecasting in place and seeing where we're spending money, where to cut back, where to spend money, and then making the right plan, it's just it's a godsend of insight that's going to hopefully guide us in the growth trajectory forever.
Can I add one more thing to that as well, which is one area I forgot to touch on was, we talk about gaining new clients and net new business, but also a really important factor is we have to grow our existing accounts. And by having these insights, we've been able to, it really forces you to think about when we have to project out the revenue per client, it really forces us to think about, well, what investments will this client make? And then us being a managed IT company, we're looking back to see what does their infrastructure look like and what obvious upgrades and changes will they need over the course of the next year. And it's just logical things that we can recommend to them. So it's really allowed us to not only get an increase in net new sales, but also our existing clients, we've grown those substantially as well, which has contributed to our growth. So overall, it helps on both fronts.
Awesome, that's fantastic. Thank you both, Jay and Jonathan, for your participation on the panel discussion. I'm going to pitch it back over to Sarah to bring us home.
Thanks, everyone. And just a couple things. So we just wanted to offer the group here that we are offering a free 1-hour finance workshop with John and John Cogan and John Morris. So if you're interested in learning more about everything that they discussed today and talking to them, please reach out to us at experts@armaninollp.com and we can get you in touch with these guys. Again, thank you, everyone. It was a great session. There was a lot of good content. And as mentioned earlier on, we'll be sending a link to the recording and the deck within 24 to 48 hours after this presentation. Thank you to our guest panelists, Jonathan and Jay. Thank you for being on the call with us today, and hope everyone on the call has a great rest of the day. Take care.
Thanks
so
everyone.
much.
Thanks.